Hey guys, this is AwesomeJohn22, and today I am bringing you the first look we have had at a figure from a brand new Transformers series set to air later this year, Transformers Robots in Disguise. The second American series with that name, though the first one was admittedly called Car Robots in Japan, and it was a decent show. It was all about reusing previous molds and making a cheap, efficient show to kind of tide the fan base over, and it worked, I think. There was some good stuff in it, definitely. But that is an entirely other tangent for me to go off on, so I'm not going to go off on it quite yet, even though I kind of did. Instead, I'm going to talk about this guy here from the new Robots in Disguise, which seems to be a tentative sequel to Transformers Prime, which I really enjoyed, despite the fact that it did have a tendency to kind of let its subplots die rather than resolve them. You can see some similar aesthetics here in his robot mode, but we're not quite ready to talk about his robot mode yet, so let's get this guy transformed up through the magic of jump cuts. And here we have Bumblebee in his vehicle mode. Let's get in close on this for a minute. He's very cool. He's a muscle car, kind of reminiscent of what he was in Prime, but also significantly different, significant enough that it's interesting to those of us who watched Prime and want something new and different. I do have a slight issue. You have to get everything lined up really, really perfectly to get all four of his wheels to sit at the same time. There we go. That's a little better. You can see nice, clear windshields right off the bat. I think that's the most obvious thing about this, is that he has those really cool blue, clear windshields. I want to point this out. Same clear blue plastic makes his weapon, and it does have storage under here. Some reviewers don't realize that, but I wanted to point that out specifically. His weapon does have storage. You just take these little gaps in the sword and slot them over these slots here, and bam! Now instead of a sword, he has an exhaust port. And zooming in a bit, you can see really nice black stripes, really nice details on the front end there with that similar blue color making up his headlights, and this does slot together a little bit better than that. There we go. You can see his Autobot symbol from his robot mode is kind of visible there. That's the only Autobot symbol in his vehicle mode, but I'm still counting it. Overall, there's not a whole lot to say about this guy in his vehicle mode. He looks good, but he's pretty simple, and that's really what this figure comes down to. It's nice looking, but it's pretty simple, and I don't know, these are really the only paint apps, the front end and the stripes. We don't have anything in the wheels, though the wheels do roll perfectly fine. Otherwise, he's just a yellow car, and he's very true to his on-screen model, what we've actually seen of it, but I don't know, it's nice, but it doesn't feel like it doesn't have quite the detail of past Bumblebees. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind that. I like it a lot. I like the look of this thing. I just kind of feel like it's missing something. In terms of a size comparison, here is Bumblebee next to Classics Optimus Prime. Just a figure that I think a lot of people know the size of fairly well. And you can see he scales pretty well next to a Voyager class. They're definitely decent size next to each other. The truck is quite a bit larger than the car, but not too much longer. I like the scale. I like it fine. I show this, though I'm not sure it's actually going to matter, and I'm going to get to that not in this review, but in the next review of Warrior Class Grimlock. And for those who don't know, Warrior Class is the new name for Deluxe Class, just to get that out of the way right away. So let's get this guy put off to the side. Yeah, but we'll talk about that later. That's a whole other thing. A whole other thing I want to rant about. But Bumblebee here. He looks good. I like him. So let's get him transformed and see if that holds. What we're going to do first here is we're just going to remove his weapon. Next we're going to come here and we're going to loosen up these doors. They kind of slot in behind these other panels. Just kind of loosen them up. That will allow us to take this entire section and lift it up, and you can see the same pegs which allow you to slot in his weapon will slot in right there, and kind of peg these to his back. Next, we're going to take his hands, or his arms, which are just kind of resting here, and we're going to bring them up, which will actually allow us to raise the doors up the rest of the way, because the wheels were kind of in the way. Next, we're going to take this section, bring it back, revealing his head. Very cool face sculpt, but we'll get to that in a minute. Next, we're going to take this section, bring it down, rotate his legs around, split them, bring down the feet, and just like that, we have Warrior Class Bumblebee. And please stand up. Come on. Come on. Come on. There we go. Warrior Class Bumblebee. And usually I would cut something like that, me having trouble standing a figure, but that's actually a plot point today, kiddies, because he has no heels at all. I mean, they couldn't even be bothered to find a way to fold out a piece of this to make a heel. It's really dumb. And while you could argue, well, these are kind of like heels, no, they're not. They don't reach down far enough. And that would have been a really clever way to use the kibble. Have them rotate or something so that they're further down, or just have them reach further down. Would have been a great way to use this really freaking obtrusive kibble that's sitting on the back of his legs. Make them his heels, but no, they didn't do that. And that is literally the one issue I have with this figure. It's got a simpler transformation than some past deluxes, especially past Prime deluxes, especially first edition Prime deluxes. If you know anything about first edition Prime Bumblebee versus the subsequent retail version of Deluxe Bumblebee, there was just a huge difference in terms of the complexity of transformation. This guy is even simpler than that, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it works perfectly fine. The transformation is still such that it's enjoyable, and there is a clear distinction between this and the vehicle mode. And I think he looks really good. This is where we have paint-apps. We didn't have a lot of paint-apps in vehicle mode, and it's made up for here because we have these big swatches of black all over the place on his arms, his shoulders, his chest, his legs, and it looks absolutely fantastic. It just makes everything pop really, really well. Zooming in on his Autobot symbol, you can see this pattern in the circle around it. That is actually something akin to a QR code. It can be scanned by the R.I.D. game app, which I don't have, but I mean, you can get it if you want, and it'll allow you to play this character in the app. It's not a terrible gimmick, but I'm probably never going to do anything with it. I mentioned he has a really great head sculpt, so if I can actually get this to focus on it, here you can see fantastic blue optics with, I mean, there's room for light piping, but it doesn't really amount to much, so I'm not really going to bother. But he's got the really cool smirk. I like the black ventilation grill thingy on his forehead. Makes him, it's a very Autobot head sculpt, and it makes him look kind of leadery, because that's the kind of thing that you usually see on Optimus Prime's head. And I think it works here, considering that in this series, Bumblebee is basically the leader of the team. So, you know, pretty nice. But again, I almost feel like this figure is missing something. And maybe it is the simplified design, I don't know. I mean, if someone watching this video can place it or figure out what it is that I'm feeling from this guy, let me know. It's just, I don't know. Between the missing heels, the fact that his wheels just kind of stick out from the fronts of his legs, I don't know. It just feels like there's something not quite finished about this guy. And don't get me wrong. Again, I really like him. I like the look of him. He's really striking. Very dynamic. He's got that kind of Prime / animated-esque design going for him, and I think it's really cool. I just kind of feel like there should be more. Maybe it's because he is coming off of the Prime line, and it was a lot more complex and a lot more accurate, and I don't know that this guy's inaccurate, because we haven't seen a whole lot of the designs from the show. For the most part, he looks very accurate, and if that's the case, then great. I'm happy for them to be able to make simplified designs that still work out to be accurate to the show models. It's just, I don't know how to describe it, guys, but I don't know. I'll try to figure it out for future reviews. How about that? He can hold his weapon, of course. The hilt of the sword is long enough that you would imagine he could hold it with both hands. And he kind of can. You can kind of get him like that. That's really the best you're going to do. So I just kind of keep it in one hand. And whether or not this is his only weapon in the show, we don't know yet. Whether or not this is the Star Saber, which we did see him using a bit at the end of Prime, we don't know that. Either way, I like it. I think it's a cool looking sword. Zooming in on it a bit, well, bringing it closer to the camera a bit, you can see it's very nicely designed. I kind of wish there was some paint on it. It wasn't just this stark, clear blue, but, you know, it works. And you can do some really cool stuff with it. He does have a full range of articulation in the shoulder, though his door wings do kind of inhibit that. But still impressive. Rotation above the elbow. A 90-degree bend at the elbow. A ball-jointed head that could do a full 360 if not for his giant chin. Hip articulation. Very, very less than 90-degree bend at the knee, but at least it's there. Rotation above the knee, and like most recent Bumblebees, his knees are quite high, as you can see here. For transformation, he has a waist joint, and that's pretty much it, but it's fairly impressive. Too bad the fact that he has no heels means that you actually can't get quite as many poses out of this guy as you might expect you could. Still, though, not bad, and overall it's better than I expected when I heard that this line was going to be simplified. I expected considerably weaker Transformers in terms of look and articulation, and overall, I have to say, I am impressed by these guys, and the simplification of the line is not nearly as obtrusive as I originally expected it to be. For a size comparison, here he is next to a Modern Legends figure, as well as another deluxe from the same line. And bringing the camera up a bit, here he is next to a recent Voyager class figure. You can see the Voyager class figure is about as tall comparatively as you would expect it to be. So it's not like he's gotten that much smaller. It's not like these guys have shrunk. But again, we'll talk about Voyager class figures in relation to these guys in our next review. So I'm just going to drop it and leave it at that. So let's get these guys gone. And get back to Bumblebee, because it is time for me to render my final verdict. And I've said a lot of really mixed things, a lot of stream of consciousness-y things about this guy during this review, that I feel like there's something missing, that it's not quite up to par, and I firmly stand by that. And that doesn't mean I think this is a bad figure. I still recommend it. Not quite wholeheartedly, my heart's still not 100% in it, but definitely 3/4 heartedly. It's a good figure. It's a lot of fun. It's a figure that collectors and kids can enjoy. It's not any less complex than the old animated figures used to be. I honestly don't know why I'm complaining about it that much. Maybe it's just because these aren't the great G1 homages that the old animated figures are, so they don't have that extra immediate boost to their aesthetic quality. Maybe it's because this is coming off of Prime. Maybe it's because I haven't seen the show yet. I don't know. But I want you to understand that. I'm not saying this is a bad figure. I'm not saying you should pick it up. I'm just saying that's my personal feeling. It's a good figure. You should get it. You can find them at retail all over the place now. That's where I got mine. You can find them at retail easier than you can find Combiner Wars, at least in my area. I had to order all my Combiner Wars stuff offline. And I'm still waiting for one or two of those things to show up, too, if I'm not mistaken. Which I very easily could be, because I'm me. But that's entirely beside the point. Bumblebee is a good figure. Pick him up. There's really not a whole lot more to it than that. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, as disorganized as it was, because I certainly enjoyed making it. Please help me out, like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below if you feel so inclined. In the description down below, you'll find links to all the things I'm working on right now, including a link to my collections video, which will be updated soon. So if you'd like to wait and check out the new one, I don't blame you, but if you do check it out and you see something in it that you would like me to review, let me know and I will see what I can do. This has been AwesomeJohn22, and I will talk to you guys later.